debate is adjourned and the bill is referred to the Finance Committee, Secretary for Labor and Welfare. President, I move the second reading of the Employment and Retirement Schemes Legislation Offsetting Arrangement Amendment Bill 2022. The objective of the bill is to abolish the arrangement of using the accrued benefits of employers' mandatory contributions or ERMC under the Mandatory Provident Fund or MPF system to offset severance payments, SPE, and long service payments or LSP under the Employment Ordinance. This is known as the offsetting arrangement. The bill seeks to give effect to the Chief Executive's enhanced proposal in her 2018 policy address to abolish the offsetting arrangement. Abolition of the offsetting arrangement is a significant measure that will benefit millions of employees and provide a better safeguard for them after retirement, while reinforcing the MPF's function as a key pillar of Hong Kong's retirement protection system. Given the far-reaching consequences in abolishing the offsetting arrangement, and that employers, employees, and different sectors held different views to the issue, the government has offered different proposals down the years to explore a practicable approach to abolish the offsetting arrangement. After years of extensive consultation and wholesale changes to the proposal, the government adopted the current proposal after sufficient consultation with employers and employees. The bill amends 8 pieces of ordinance or subsidiary legislation which provide for the offsetting arrangement or contain provisions that need to be consequently amended upon the abolition of the arrangement. I will now highlight the content of the bill. Abolition of the offsetting arrangement is closely tied to the supporting measure of introducing a designated savings account or DSA scheme and the eMPF platform being developed by the Mandatory Provident Fund Schemes Authority. The abolition arrangement will come into effect on an appointed date after the eMPF platform is fully implemented, or what is known as the transition date. After the transition date, employers can no longer use ERMC to offset the SP or LSP entitlement of an employee in respect of their employment starting from the transition date. Meanwhile, employers' voluntary contributions and the derived returns as well as gratuities based on employees' length of service can continue to be used to offset both pre- or post-transition portion of SP and LSP. These arrangements will remain unchanged. The bill proposes that the abolition will have no retrospective effect. If an employee was employed before the transition date, employers may continue to use the accrued benefits derived from their MPF contributions irrespective of whether the contributions are made before or after the transition date or whether they are mandatory or voluntary to offset an employee's SP and LSP entitlement before the transition date. This arrangement helps mitigate the risk of massive layoffs before the transition date. Otherwise, some employers might dismiss their employees, especially those with longer years of service before the transition date, in order to be able to use accrued benefits derived from the MPF mandatory contributions to offset SP or LSP. The current rate for calculating SP or LSP is 2/3 of the last monthly wages, subject to a maximum of $22.5 thousand for each year of service, and the maximum payment of SP or LSP is $390,000. The bill will not change the rate and maximum payment of SP or LSP. The bill proposes that the pre-transition portion of SP or LSP be calculated on the basis of the monthly wages immediately preceding the transition date and the years of service before the transition date, whereas the post-transition portion of SP or LSP would be calculated on the basis of the last monthly wages before the termination of employment and the years of service at that time. In comparison with using the last monthly wages before the termination of employment for calculating the total amount of SP or LSP, the above arrangement can guard against the risk of deliberate dismissals of employees by employers before the abolition takes effect. If an employee's employment period covers the transition date and the total SP or LSP exceeds $390,000, The bill proposes that the excess portion be deducted from the post-transition portion of the SP or LSP. This is to provide an incentive for employers to retain their staff and continue to employ them after the transition date and foster harmonious employments. Under the rare individual circumstances where an employee ends up worse off after abolition of the offsetting arrangement, the government will make up the difference through administrative means so that the employee will not receive less than what he or she would have been entitled to at present. To facilitate calculation of pre-transition portion of SP or LSP, employers will be required to keep wage and employment records of the employees covering the 12 months of the employee's employment immediately preceding the transition date. Abolition of the offsetting arrangement will also be applicable to occupational retirement schemes under the Occupational Retirement Schemes Ordinance, the two school provident funds under the Grant Schools Provident Fund rules and subsidized schools provident fund rules, and overseas occupational retirement schemes of employees from outside Hong Kong which are exempted from the MPF system. Since employers' contributions under these schemes are not differentiated into mandatory and voluntary contributions, the bill proposes to calculate and carve out a portion of non-offsettable benefits from ORS benefits by using a specific formula. These benefits, which are akin to ERMC, cannot be used to offset post-transition portion of SP or LSP. After deducting the amounts of non-offsettable benefits, the remaining amount can be used to offset pre- or post-transition portion of SP or LSP akin to ERVC. Abolition of the offsetting arrangement will not be applicable to employees who are currently not covered by the MPF system or other statutory retirement schemes because such employees are not affected by the offsetting arrangement. Their SP or LSP, if eligible, will continue to be calculated on the basis of the last monthly wages before the termination of employment in accordance with the existing practice. The bill also amends the Inland Revenue Ordinance to make it clear that SP and LSP paid in accordance with the Employment Ordinance is not chargeable to salaries tax, and makes consequential technical amendments to the Protection of Wages on Insolvency Ordinance in respect of provisions on the subrogation rights of the protection of wages on insolvency fund and calculation of ex gratia payment for SP in cases involving wage reduction. We consulted the Labour Advisory Board and Sch.Legis panel on manpower over the bill. They expressed support in the proposal. To complement the abolition arrangement, the government will introduce two support measures, including a government subsidy scheme and a designated savings account scheme. As announced in the 2021 Policy Address Supplement, the enhanced government subsidy scheme will see a largely unchanged financial commitment and maintain a 25-year subsidy period to provide targeted assistance to MSMEs and help employers adapt to the policy change. We have met and explained the enhanced subsidy scheme to stakeholders, including the Sch.Legis panel on manpower, LAB, employers associations, labor groups, and political parties. The business sector and society generally express support in the scheme. For the DSA scheme, we will first consult the main stakeholders on the operational details before introducing a bill into Sch.Legis. The eMPF platform is expected to be fully implemented by 2025 at the earliest. By that time, we will concurrently launch the DSA scheme and abolish the offsetting arrangement. Members, the abolition arrangement has been discussed in the community for years, and the current proposal was the result of a consensus reached between employers and employees after extensive consultation and amendment suggestions. I call upon members to support the bill so that it could be passed as soon as possible to afford better retirement protection for employees in Hong Kong. Thank you, President. I now propose the question to you that the above bill be read the second time in accordance with the rules of procedure. The second reading debate is adjourned and the bill is referred to the House Committee. I now adjourn the Council. The Council will resume on Wednesday, 16th of March 2022 at 11 a.m.